America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching The Black Athenians, and I come to you every Friday about this time, 4 o'clock-ish, to tell you some quality of political knowledge that's not obvious, but may help you make sense of your life, with the idea that if we kind of make the right moves, we can actually make black communities whole. But there are a lot of people who are trying to distract you, and I think Bobby Wright has this mind that Dr. Bobby Wright, who wrote a wonderful little book called Psychopathic Racial Personality, had this right is the number one fight in America is for the Negro mind, because if they can control your mind, they can control your behind. And so what is the mind control that's working on black people right now? There's a video that just dropped by Pharrell called Entrepreneur. And in the video, he has a few black hustlers. It's a kaleidoscope of black hustlers, but he highlights a few black hustlers who are trying to, trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. And apparently that's what we're supposed to do in this world. And that is never, that's not a strategy for political uplift. There are 40 million black people in the United States. Like, the problem isn't that we don't hustle hard enough. Problem is, for every black entrepreneur that Pharrell highlighted, there are 50 that tried it and died, probably got divorced, then died for the trouble, right? So the problem isn't that we don't hustle hard enough. I mean, you got Alton Sterling getting shot by police for selling CDs out of his car, and then Eric Gardner selling loose cigarettes and getting choked out. So the problem isn't that we hustle hard enough. The problem is I have the tweet of the week. A cat, he said regarding Biden's speech yesterday, that when Biden said, like, he's pretty much not going to be the president of Democrats, he's going to be the president of all Americans. Since black people, we vote Democrat, that means he's not doing nothing for us. So that means it's all up to our individual hustle if we're going to do anything. And if it's all up to our individual hustle, then why even vote Democrat? I'm just saying. I'm putting 3 and 3 together here for you. But after Biden's speech, I tweeted out and someone responded. I think this is great. If this were a hoop game, he would effectively be saying, "Get yours off the misses, because we not running any plays for you." That's black life. Get yours off the misses, because we not running any plays for you. And it's not like the coach isn't running any plays. They're just not running any plays for us, right? Because when you say, like, well, I'm the president of all Americans, that means I'm the president of people who think that black people are owed a debt. And I'm also the president representing those deadbeats who don't want to play back people what they're owed. That's how you both sides it. So that's a problem. And Joe Biden saying, well, I'm not the president of Democrats, I'm the president of America. And black people with Democrats. So what he's pretty much saying is, black people, you're not getting nothing. I'm going to try to chase some of these white Republican votes. What you going to do about it? Do something about it. So there's this notion that without actually full faith of government, we can just privately hustle our lives. And that's just, it's just a recipe for black degradation. It's a recipe for black degradation. And then death, where you blame yourself for not hustling harder. If you just hustle harder, you could be like Oprah. No, there was always going to be one Oprah. There was always going to be one Oprah, and there was always only going to be one Oprah. That's how America's built. You need one Oprah to keep a few 100 million a million Negroes in their place. There was always going to be one, but there's always only ever going to be one. And so you could try to be that one, but I don't want to be one. You want, the aim is community uplift. So the private hustle is never going to work. But there's a deeper argument against a private hustle. I'm going to go for that after the intro.
To the beat, y'all. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
So I'm reading this book by a guy named Randolph Hooley. Randolph Hoole. And he's a prof out of Fredonia. Yes, Fredonia. And it's a book called the Neoliberal Racism in the Neoliberal Era. And he makes the argument that here's the deal with how racism worked. Right? In the Jim Crow South, there were always white populists. There were always white people who looked out for poor white people and thought the government ought to do better by poor white people. And they could do that in the Jim Crow South. And you recognize these names. It's your Lester Maddox. It's your Big Jim Folsom out of Alabama. It's your Huey Long in Louisiana. But there's a whole tradition of white Southern populists who are very serious about trying to get government on the side of poor white Southerners. Like these guys were earnest in that. And they wouldn't even mind if some black people got some collateral benefits. They weren't going to run any plays for us, but they wouldn't even mind if some black people got some collateral benefits. My favorite Big Jim Folsom story is when he met with Martin Luther King, and he said to King, you should be more like Gandhi. Just don't fight back. That nonviolent stuff. Just be more like Gandhi. Don't fight back. And so be very careful of when good people get interpreted by white people. So there have always been white populists who looked out for the white poor. And in Jim Crow South, it was pretty easy to do because black people weren't people. They weren't people yet. No, we came in the back entrances. we were people adjacent. So we weren't slaves, but we weren't people. So you could be a white populist and you had the Klan unofficially policing the margins of public peoplehood, and black people just weren't people. So that was just understood. And so you could be a public populist without ever having to actually fight for racial justice in any serious way, because that being a populist pretty much meant you were for the white poor. So you were fighting for the white poor against the industrial class of whites. Right. So these governors are real populists in that way. But then with the civil rights movement, black people were legally recognized as people. And that posed a problem for the white populists, right? So what he said was the public sphere was white. And this is Hooley's argument. The public sphere was white before the civil rights movement. There were always black people and a ton of them, but the public sphere that counted as public people were white. And so that, the civil rights movement, once it acknowledged that black people were people in public, then what happened was whiteness moved to the private sphere. So the private sphere was white. So that's when you get like white people going for deregulation and white people and stigmatizing. Once the public school is like the one drop rule, once just a few Negroes get acknowledged as public people, it ruins the whole public. Got to throw the whole public away. And pretty much the shape of government, both the Democratic and the Republican Party for the last 40 years, has been trying to find ways to throw the whole government away. We want to just throw it all away. And because now black people are getting it. And so it's the private sphere that's now white. And so you have to be careful of a kind of white private populism, or private populism that happens to be white because it's white. Now, Hooley, because the private sphere is white. Now, Hooley makes the argument that instead of the Klan policing the boundaries of the public in Jim Crow South, we have now that black people are in the public sphere officially, we have an official police that polices blackness and degrades blackness through legitimate means in public. So we have a police that does what the Klan does. And pretty much wherever black people are, there are going to be white supremacist violence policing them, right? So when we were out of the public, it was the Klan policing us at the margin. Now that we're in the public, it's police doing it legitimately through the state. The state has internalized and then legitimized policing public blackness in a way. And that's Hoole's argument. But the interesting thing, what goes on in the private sphere. So now that whiteness has moved from the public to the private, white populists are all about deregulating the private sphere and trying to make private life better. Make private life better. And this is, Trump's in on this game too. But this is also the kind of private populism that you have to watch out for. It's a private populism of the UBI. The UBI, the Universal Basic Income, is this notion that if we just give everyone, $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month, they'll be fine. Pretty much put everyone on welfare, they'll be fine. Without any public infrastructure or without any productive power. Right? So what that ends up being is guaranteed rent for white landlords. But it's privatizing populism. Charter schools are another way to privatize populism. We don't have to make public schools very good. We just have to give people the choice to privately spend their monies in and that's how we democratize power, through privatizing power and not actually just enabling people to act in public. Right? So this stigmatizing the public and kind of lifting up of the private is because white people are now private people. When white people were public people, then the populists were all about like securing public goods. Now that white people are private people, they're all about securing privatized goods. The problem is with an infrastructure, without a public infrastructure, you can't actually compete. But it's seductive. And the private populism will be like, well, we just need more black entrepreneurial hustlers. And that's how we'll get over. No, we can't get over with more black. We have 40 million people deep. Like, that's not a problem you can solve with just a few more black entrepreneurs. We don't own anything. So, like, you need to do this. You need programs that aren't just individualized for individual black people, but for entire communities. And those are going to have to be public programs, accountable to the public. It's the people's thing. Right, so and unless you get that, you'll be suckered into this private populism. Right, so you have to understand. On occasion, I go on Rising, and I love it when they have me on. I'm very grateful. I think Crystal Ball is pretty excellent. So anytime you're pretty much never going to see me say anything wrong bad about Crystal Ball, because I think she's a class act and she takes a chance on me in a way that other people don't. And don't have to. So, but I think she's wrong about kind of how populism works in some ways. And on the show, it's Saga and Jetty who's the right populist, and Crystal Ball is the left populist. But I don't think Crystal understands the struggles, the cultural struggles of left populism when the best you can do right now, not the best you can do, but when it's going to veer towards, unless you do race first, it's going to veer towards a private populism, which is the populism of the UBI, which isn't going to do anything for black people except, put them on welfare a little bit. You can't, it's not real capital. It's not real public infrastructure. So we have a nation that's built, and then there's the Klan populism of Sagar. He doesn't know it yet. I'm sure he denies it, but you try to, anyway. So you don't mess with white culture, but then you try to be a populist. You end up with Lester Maddox, and you end up with Huey Long, and you end up with Big Jim Folsom. It's going to be white because all of the cultural infrastructures are white supremacists. But if you don't actually revitalize the public, your populism will be a liberal or a private populism of a UBI as opposed to a federal job guarantee. It'll be the private populism of, charter schools, the private populism of some entrepreneurship programs, right? Or loans even. Or even private grants, but it won't be public infrastructure. And we need public infrastructure. In the American South, there is 50 years of deferred maintenance, just work that needs to be done before we can get to work. like sidewalks and clean water and sanitation systems. And like, you can't do that by giving everyone a UBI, because sanitation systems cost $12,000 each, right? So you need actually huge public infrastructure. And then we can be productive and, yeah. But watch out for the populism that is private focused and still stigmatize the public infrastructure and public accountability and public bureaucracy. And I hope that's been helpful. The move from white public to white private, and then the populist move that goes from white public populism of Huey Long and Big Jim Folsom and Maddox and even Zell Miller. Populist guy. He's all about the white poor. Like, all these guys are all about the white poor. Now that move goes to private because the white poor, like, now privatize their goods because black people have been recognized as public people, as members of the public. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. It's a little bit short. I have some other things to say, but I want to keep it impactful. Share this with your friends, and I will see you at another time. And if you like what I do, and you should like what I do, if you like what I do, actually like the video, that's good. But then also send it around to your friends. Watch this instead of your book club meeting, because I try to provide a service to the people, right? So make sure your populism is public, not private, and beware of people who try to privatize progress. We can do more with NGOs, 501c3s and nonprofits are a great way, are a great scheme to try to privatize progress. It gets in the, and all these greedy little pastors want their hooks in it too. So it gets in the way of actual public accountability, and there are private fetters, right? So not everyone's going to be admitted into a private program. There's going to be strings attached, private strings. Right? And this is all because whiteness has been privatized. I hope this has been helpful. It shouldn't be a surprise as soon as black people enter an arena, then that arena is stigmatized in America because America is anti-black. Yeah, there you go. And I will talk to you at another time. Bye. Credit cards. If you appreciate the work I do every week and you think that I should continue to do it because I'm giving you the quality of political knowledge and insight that will help you not squander your life and kind of rescue meaning from it, then go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, or make one enormous donations. I like the monthlies because it allows me to budget more, and that'll help me, with a marketing budget or getting better equipment that works all the time. Because in a lot of ways, freedom means having equipment that works every time you turn it on. And I want to be a free Negro. So if you like what I do, go to funkyacademic.com and contribute. Thanks often comes in the form of cash, and the site takes